rendered butter, and we're buttering the bottom of the sheet. And every sheet of dough has to be buttered. And keep it in a damp, just a damp towel so it doesn't dry on you, and then it's too hard to spread. So one sheet at a time, and hope that it doesn't break like this one did. Just lay a piece in if it breaks, and then make sure you butter every layer. And again, that's the rendered butter. Now hopefully these sheets won't break. It'll be easy to lay, but if it gets dry, then they break. Make sure it's flat. And then again, butter. So we're going to do this whole, this is a pound of dough, and we're going to butter every layer until this pound is used up. Okay, you can try, so I have to keep it covered so it doesn't break on me as I'm putting it in the tray. This tray is taking 2 pounds of phyllo dough and 2 pounds of butter. So the butter has to be rendered. So you put it on a real low fire on the stove, and you keep cooking it until all the residue stays on the bottom of the pan, and you have just clear butter, and you don't use any of that stuff on the bottom. And then you know, just you could do that like the day before, have your butter all rendered and ready. And then this is maybe over 2 pounds of ground nuts. And in the nuts, I put 2/3 cup sugar, and I put a jigger of liquor, whiskey, and I put maybe a tablespoon and a half of rose water. You can flavor to wherever you like, but it's a jigger of liquor, rose water, and sugar, and mix it with, it's supposed to be 2 pounds of dough, 2 pounds of nuts, and 2 pounds of butter. But I think I have more than 2 pounds of nuts there. But the more nuts you have, the better. Right now is to layer every sheet with butter and try to get it off as even as you can. Lay it and butter it. Butter as smooth as you can across the whole piece of dough. Okay, get me in this. The last sheet, instead of going this way, you'll go this way to hold the nuts in. So I've put the whole pound in there, whole pound of dough. Now I'm putting the nuts, and just spread it all over. And you can do, you know, have your nuts all ready with the sugar and the liquor that you're going to put in it. 1 jigger and rose water. Okay. Take your nuts and spread them around. And then after you've got them spread, kind of pat them down. And then you fold those pieces over to hold, kind of hold, and flip these few pieces over just to kind of hold the nuts in, and then again butter those, this before you start putting the next pound of nuts on. Not nuts, but the next pound of dough. And don't, you can put pieces if it breaks. Just layer them on there. Okay, you can this one will be a good package and it won't be dry, because that is a real struggle when they're dry. Okay, now you're starting on the next pound of dough. So just continue with the whole pound, buttering every sheet as you go along. Make sure you get the corners so they're not dry. You have to get the butter in every area. This pound seems to be really good, and the sheets are staying whole, and that's what makes it so much easier, is when you get a good fresh package of dough, and then it goes very easy. Okay, this is the last layer. You butter the top real good. Then you take a knife and you have to tuck in the sides. So go all the way around, tucking in the dough with a knife. Now if you want, you can put this in the refrigerator for a while, or you can bake it right away. Either way, if you want it to set a while in the refrigerator, that's fine. We've done it even overnight, but I'll probably just bake it today. But a lot of people do it bake it the next day, which is fine. So make sure you go all the way around, tucking it in. And now we're going to cut it after we've tucked it all the way around. And now we're going to go down the middle. Find the middle, have a sharp knife, and you have to press hard to go through all the layers. Sure you cut it good, and then you're going to go like so in half again using your eye. Okay, now we're going to do each section one at a time. Down in the middle, and then down again, down again, and down again. Now I'm going to go this way. And you can see how big of a piece you want it. So we're going to leave these at the end that size. So just some will be bigger than others, and then you kind of have to judge it. Okay, now we're going to do another line. You really have to press hard to go through all these layers. Okay, again, we're going to go on an angle. And we leave these at the end a little bigger, so you can just kind of judge this and make a small cut here and then another cut here. We'll do it in squares. You can do it whatever you want, but this is the way City did it. Don't get me on this. Okay, the tray's been in there 2 hours and before, and it should be cold syrup. And I just dropped some oranges in here, fresh oranges, just to give it a nice flavor. And it gives you 3 cups of water, 7.5 cups of sugar, and the juice of a half a lemon. But you just put all the ingredients and then follow the directions for cooking. Now the syrup is cold, always cold, and the baklawa's hot. If this sometime for some reason would be cold, then the syrup has to be hot. It's always the opposite. So this is calling for 4 cups of syrup. So it's about a cup of syrup on each square here. And just pour it until you know that you've saturated every one with syrup. So that's 1 cup there. This just came out of the oven, so, and it baked for 2 hours. I think that's pretty well saturated. When you know that every bit of it has gotten soaked, just leave the rest if you got some left over, and you can use it for whatever you need for white syrup. What's that? Oh, teaspoon of salt.
I was going to say, where's the sugar?
And a teaspoon of sugar.
Oh.
Okay, we have six cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and we're going to take 1 teaspoon of sugar and put it in the 2 yeast cakes. A heaping teaspoon of sugar. And we're putting in 2 yeast cakes. Okay, now we have to get the temperature right on the water, because if it's too hot, it'll kill the yeast. So, Robbie, come feel the water. Wait. Okay. Feel that, okay? Okay. So dissolve your yeast cake.
Does it take how much water?
No, because you're going to keep adding water anyways as you're mixing the dough. So you just have to know how the dough will feel as to how much water you're going to put in.
In the yeast?
No, in the,
Does it say how much water to add to the yeast?
oh, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
Just so it gets dissolved and gets foamed.
Okay.
You can stop now. Okay, we're saying a cup of water to the yeast, and you make sure the water is not too hot but yet warm, so the yeast is going to dissolve, and you don't add it to the flour until this starts to foam.
Don't take this.
Don't shoot it. Okay, we have the 6 cups of flour, the salt, the yeast is foamed. There's 2 packages of yeast in here, and it's foamed, and we're saying approximately 1 cup of water. So pour that into your flour. Make sure you get all the yeast, and we'll measure the water to make sure you kind of have an idea of how much you're going to use. So here's 1 cup. And start working your dough with your hands. And you can see you need another cup of water, so right away put in, now we're up to 2 cups of water so far. And don't put any more of that in there until you've worked this flour in to see how much more you're going to need, because you don't want to end up with too much flour in there. And the whole thing is, you don't want to handle the dough too long. So try to work it as little as you can, and your bread will turn out better. Used 2 already, so let's go a half more, a 1/4 of a cup of water. So just keep turning it and kneading it with your hands. And it feels like it has enough water, so
That was 2 1/2.
that was 2 1/4. Okay, now here's where the oil comes in. Like a teaspoon on your hand. And that's olive oil, but you can use any oil. And start working the oil in a little bit. And that kind of gets it off your hand and gets the dough smooth. So again, try not to work it too long. The less you work the dough with your hand, the better. Just so it's away from the bowl, and it's coming off your hands better now, and you've got it pretty well blended, and that should be it. Okay, you can, the Syrian bread dough is supposed to look like. We're going to make loaves of bread out of this, Syrian bread. And we're going to cover it, and we're going to put it in an oven that is turned off, but wrapped in a towel for approximately 1 hour. We'll check it in about an hour or 45 minutes to see how it should double in size. So that's...
Is the oven heated?
No,
No.
just a cold oven,
Okay.
but wrap it in a towel. This was double, and I just knocked it down. It's been in here about 45 minutes. Full for bread, so I'm making them fairly small. So that's about that's the size of the dough we're going to make into balls. Well, now that the piece of dough, the size you want this loaf to be, and I think this is, you just kind of got to try it, and next time if they're too big and you want them smaller, you just judge your dough accordingly and make them as big as you want them. And remember, City always put newspaper, sheet, and then dough, and then when you let them rest, you put the sheet on the top so they can just rest a few minutes. 9 loaves, and it just depends upon how big you want to make them. And I let them just rest for 10-15 minutes. And now I'm rolling them out. And you don't roll them too thin, because then they're too hard to handle. So see, now these are a little bigger than I had planned on, but that's okay. And you do them so that you can handle them okay. So after you roll it, just put it back here, because if they're too thin, you won't be able to get them into
What happens if they're too thick?
Huh?
Can they be too thick?
No, just so you know you can handle them. You'll know. That's about what they should look like. Sitting, and I'm going to test drive one of them. So I have to get a pot holder out.
I use Delaware a lot.
Yeah, I'm ready to test drive it. So let's put one in and see what happens. And hopefully it's going to be okay.
Isn't that neat?
Oven has to be at least 400, 425, and I put a cookie sheet in there to heat so that when I put the bread on the cookie sheet, the sheet is very hot. So now hopefully it's going to bubble up, and when it gets brown on the bottom, I'm going to pull it up to the top shelf and toast the top of it. And I'm going to switch the oven to broil then. Actually, it's not, it hasn't quite, so we've got to give it till it turns. And it's going to be, you know, fast, so you can't leave it. You got to stand right here and tilt your door.